Socrates and the price of integrity. What would you risk for the truth? Your freedom, your reputation, or your life? In 399 BCE, in the heart of democratic Athens, an old man stood before a jury of 500 citizens. He was not a general, not a politician, not a warrior. He was a philosopher. His name was Socrates, and he was on trial for corrupting the youth and impiety, for questioning the beliefs that held his society together. But this was not merely a legal trial. It was a confrontation between integrity and fear. Socrates had spent his life doing something dangerous. He asked questions. He walked the streets of Athens, engaging citizens in dialogue, challenging assumptions about justice, virtue, courage, and wisdom. He claimed to know nothing, and yet through questioning, he exposed how little others truly understood. To some, he was enlightening. To others, he was humiliating. And in a city still wounded from war and political instability, discomfort quickly turned into resentment. Athens had recently suffered defeat in the Peloponnesian War. Trust in institutions was fragile. Suspicion was everywhere, and Socrates, with his relentless questioning, became an easy symbol of disruption. His association with controversial former students, including Alcibiades and Critias, did not help. Fear needs a target, and eventually that target became him. During the trial, as recorded later by Plato in the Apology, Socrates did not beg. He did not flatter the jury. He did not soften his message to secure acquittal. Instead, he calmly defended his life's work. He argued that he was serving Athens by awakening it, like a gadfly stirring a sluggish horse. He insisted that questioning, examining, and seeking virtue was not corruption, but a moral duty. Then came the moment that defines his legacy. He was found guilty. According to Athenian law, he could propose an alternative punishment. Exile was an option. Silence was an option. He could have left Athens and lived quietly elsewhere. He could have saved his life, but exile would mean abandoning his mission. Silence would mean betraying his principles. And for Socrates, a life without the examined pursuit of truth was not worth living. So he refused to compromise. The jury sentenced him to death by hemlock. In his final days, friends visited him in prison. They urged him to escape. They had arranged everything. The guards could be bribed. He could flee. No one would stop him. But Socrates declined. To escape would mean breaking the very laws he had lived under and philosophically defended. He believed that injustice could not be answered with injustice. Even when the system failed him, he would not fail his own moral code. And so, surrounded by his students, he drank the poison calmly. As the paralysis slowly rose through his body, he continued to speak about the immortality of the soul. There was no panic, no rage, no regret, only composure, only conviction. Socrates lost the trial. He lost his life. But he did not lose himself. That is what makes him unconquered. Power tried to silence him. Society rejected him. Fear condemned him. Yet none of it could force him to betray his principles. His body was defeated, but his integrity was untouched. And in the end, history remembers not the names of the jurors who condemned him, but the man who stood firm before them. Integrity is not proven when it is convenient. It is proven when it is costly. Most people think strength is loud, that it looks like dominance or victory. But Socrates shows us a different kind of strength, the strength to stand alone, the strength to remain consistent when pressured, the strength to accept consequences rather than abandon truth. We may never face a courtroom like his, but we all face moments where compromise whispers, where silence feels safer, where fitting in seems easier than standing firm. In those moments, the question is not what will protect you, but what will define you. Socrates chose to be defined by principle rather than survival. And because of that, more than 2,000 years later, His voice still echoes through philosophy, ethics, and education. His method shaped Western thought. His student Plato carried his teachings forward. His influence reached Aristotle, and through him, the foundations of much of modern philosophy. The man Athens tried to erase became one of the pillars of intellectual history. That is the paradox of integrity. It may cost you in the short term, but it builds something unbreakable in the long term. To be unconquered is not to avoid defeat. It is to refuse internal surrender. Socrates teaches us that the examined life, a life guided by principle rather than fear, may demand sacrifice. But it also grants something rare, peace with oneself. And that peace cannot be sentenced. It cannot be exiled. It cannot be poisoned. That is the price of integrity. And that is the power of being unconquered.